everybody, Adam Gussow here with a different sort of harmonica lesson. Not really a harmonica lesson, but a kind of harmonica player's lesson. As many of you know, some of you know, I was just on the road last week with my blues trio. Actually, last week and earlier this week with my blues trio, Sir Rod and the Blues Doctors. We had a four gig swing down through Florida. And we played in Gulfport on May 20th, and then we had 3 gigs in a row in the Daytona Beach area. Ormond Beach, Flagler Beach, New Smyrna Beach. It's the Wild West out there. Nobody was masked. Luckily, we're all bulletproof. We've had our stuff. Anyway, this is what I want to talk to you about today. What is life like on the road when you're making this music and when, as we say, stuff starts to fall off the wagon? Like stuff starts to... You get some wear and tear going on. I had a number of near disasters, a number of things that went wrong that we didn't want to become disasters, and I thought if I just sort of went through, this would serve you if you're sort of if part of the long arc of your development is professionalization, like to be a professional blues harmonica player. What does that mean? And the first thing, of course, that you know if you've ever played gigs on the road is you're really a roadie. Actually sitting or standing and making music is the least of what you do. Most of what you do is getting to and from the gig, getting to the hotel, finding things, sound checking, loading in. So it's a lot of physical work. So I'm going to sort of go through. I made a list: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that were problems on in 4 days on the road, and I thought this would be revealing. And yeah, I used the same pair of black jeans 4 days in a row because it turns out that 35-30s are my size, and I just didn't want to wear stretched out 36-30s. So sometimes, yes, we do that. But there's a lot of things you're going to learn from this. So number one. And so there's 3 of us. We had a Lexus RX 350 that was jammed to the gill. There was no room for more than us and every single piece of equipment. We were carrying a full PA, big PA columns. Rod was in the back. We drove 2,000 miles in the period of time we were together, 6 days, I think. Pros going out west and back and forth could do more than that. But it was quite a bit of driving. First night, actually, yeah, this was a problem that became a problem later. First night in Gulfport, my K amp, which I now don't have because it's in the shop, my K amp has been sort of beginning to malfunction over the past 2 or 3 years. It was redone back in 2009 by a wonderful amp tech who I have now sent it to, named Brian Amundsen, who really knows K703s and K703Cs. It's a small 5-watt, 3 tubes amp, and he redid it back then. It's worked beautifully, but over the past 3 years, every once in a while, it feels like the sound there's just not as much, and then it'll work again. What's going on? Probably, he and I both suspect this, there's a problem with one of the tube sockets. It's not, it may be the tube, but then again, I put in some new tubes here, probably a tube socket. What does that mean? Well, and what do you mean tube socket? When you have amps with tubes, either the tube can crap out, or sometimes tubes get unseated. If your amps are sideways on the road and then you go over a bump, this happened once back in the day with Satan and Adam when I was traveling, and I plugged in a 54 Fender Deluxe, Tweed Deluxe, and it was like big hum. I'm going, what's wrong? My amp is broke. No, it's just one tube had come out. It was unseated, and you have to seat it, reseat it, S-E-A-T. You have to sort of push it back in, and then it worked fine. Well, I'm having, I think, that kind of a problem, but it's probably the tube socket probably has a faulty, one of the prongs in it, not the prongs, that's on the tubes, the things the prongs fit into, the contacts. One of the contacts is probably semi-fractured. That's not going to work. And so you think you can get by with equipment that occasionally has problems. It's never a good thing to go on the road like that. Now, luckily for me, I always bring 3 amps on the road. I bring 2 small amps, the K and a Masco MU5, and I bring a bigger amp, in this case a Premier. Turned out that at that gig, the first gig of the night, I was using both. It was outdoors, so instead of using 2 small amps, I used the K and I used a Premier Twin 8. Good thing I had the Premier, but when I watched the tapes afterwards, I realized what was happening, which was, for some songs, the K was working fine. For other songs, the K suddenly shorted out. Now here's the problem. We had no sound man, and the K was the only amp being mic'd through the house, mic'd into the PA system. So when the K shorted out, all I had was, well, my bigger amp on stage, but it's not that full spectrum sound. And so when I watched tapes of our performance afterwards, I realized, half the time it was working great, and half the time I was just depending for my sound on the other amp. You never want to be in that position. So I learned that's lesson number one. Never bring an amp that usually works but occasionally gets finicky on the road unless you have a spare. Turned out I had a spare. So anyway, that's number one. So I knew I was having a problem. It was the next night when I was on stage and it refused to work. Now what I do when amps refuse to work is what we used to do with our old Zenith black and white TV back in the early 60s when I was 5 years old. My dad would, when it would ghost up every now and then, like a tube would misbehave, he would bang the metal side, bang, and it would just clarify. I'm like an old, analog guy, and so when the amp doesn't work, I bang it, which tends to sort of reseat or alternatively seat the tubes. I've learned to stick my finger in the back of a plugged-in amp and sort of push on the tubes. None of this is good, and it just wouldn't work. So I very quickly, at that night, I was using two smaller amps. So in the middle of the set, I got up. I had my Premiere. I knew that the K was misbehaving, and I got the Premiere and I plugged it in the middle of a set. Can you imagine? Luckily, I had that amp there, and so I got through the set with both the amps working and with nothing mic'd in that room. That was just what I did. Not ideal, but that. So I said, "Crap! I can't use the K anymore. I have to go with the Masco." Now, at the same time that I'll talk about the Masco in a minute. At the same time this was happening, on the first night, or was it the second night? It was the second night. I realized all of a sudden that the mouse wasn't working. So we've been using the mouse. This is a mouse. This is the amp. I used to use this on the street in Harlem. It's been a great amp. It was originally designed. These were 5-watt, portable, movable, self-powered monitors. They were self-powered monitors, and that was its original use. It's an incredible harp amp, as solid-state amps go. It's heavy. You can put it on its side to busk. I'm on the road with this thing, and I've got Rod. We've got Rod, and he and I are both using this thing as our monitor, and the sound starts to break up badly. And once again, it's like it's my fault, right? Because this amp had a problem. I didn't know what it was. It took a long time to charge. Well, it turns out it just wasn't really holding a charge. And so I said, okay, crap. So that was that problem. There was that problem. There was another thing that happened. And it happened that second night, the first of our 3 beach gigs, which is the guy guy from the house. It was called the Garage in Ormond Beach. And the guy said, yeah, so here's the link. Just plug your cable here and then plug it into your PA. You don't have to worry about your PA too much. We'll adjust sound in the house. Now this was new to me. I had, in all my years of bringing PAs to clubs, when you have to do that, and sometimes you do, I'd never been in a situation where there was also an output from the PA into the house so that they could play it. But it turns out in the beach area of Florida, you've got all these places that are really spread out. Now this place was not particularly spread out, but what they needed was a cable that it turned out our booking agent, Sean Impara, who nicely enough kind of ran across the street and got a cable. And so you plug an XLR, the 3-prong, into the house, turns out, and then you have this 1/4 inch. I had to figure out where to plug it in. We plugged this into our PA system, and that would let them. Turned out they didn't. Sean tried to get a cable, and the cable didn't work. So I said to myself, when I get home, so we had the same problem the next night. No, not the next night. The final night. Same thing. It was like, this is the thing you're expected to have when you gig in Florida. You're expected to have a cable that will run from your PA system, which you're expected to bring, to the house system, which will then distribute your sound. So you don't have to like blast everybody out here and then don't hear it here. You can moderate your volume out front, but it'll be sort of through all the different rooms in the beachy facility. So the first thing I did when I got home is I said, let me check my bag of tricks and see if I've got that cable. And sure enough, I did. So I believe that this is what I need. It's got, so that's the female end here, I guess. Is that right? Male end. I got the male end, but I got this little thing at some point in the course of this little adapter, which fits right on. Boom. So we got that. Plug it into the wall. Plug this into the PA. Next time we're set. So that problem will not be a problem next time. But for the purposes of this trip, it was a problem. So I got to go out the next day, and I said, I got to fix the mouse. So I knew what to do. I needed 2 particular kinds of batteries. And I went online, reminded myself that I had once bought them from Amazon. In fact, that's probably the problem. The ones I got were cheap. They were $10 or $11 each. And I went to Lowe's, and Lowe's had them, it turned out. I don't have the batteries to show you now, but what I did, and I did something else. I said, well, I want to put in my batteries. So I got a, oh, I didn't even tell you about that. Oh my God, we had a flat tire. We had a tire that was losing air. So at the same time as we're trying to do our first tour as a trio, I have all these things going wrong. Yeah, it just wouldn't hold air. It was like down to 18 pounds, 22 pounds one morning. I filled it up the next morning, 18 pounds. It's like, there's the writing on the wall. So I took that to Walmart. They said, it's going to be 2 hours, sir. It's going to be 2 hours. I said, to fix a flat. Okay, well, I'll go and buy stuff that I need. They fixed the flat. Well, it turned out, the guy came out to me and he said, I can't fix the flat. He goes, because you've got a nail, sir, on the inside of your right rear tire. Can't see it from the outside. It's on the, and it's right where the, what is it? It's right where the tread joins the sidewall. So the radial thing joins the sidewall. And you can't plug something when it's in the sidewall. So he said, you need a new tire. Ended up spending $100, mounted, balanced, and got a new tire. It's not the same kind. It's not a Michelin, but I got a new tire. So that I was resolving that. Once I resolved that, I went to Lowe's. I found 2 burglar alarm batteries, and I bought myself, amazingly they had, or actually I might have gotten this at Walmart. Anyway, I got this somewhere. It came with solder. And then, I want to show you something else. For the past 5 years, I have somewhere buried in the 2 knapsacks that I carry PA stuff with, a pliers, which I don't use very often, and this kind of really cool for musicians on the road. And again, I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of cool. It has all of this stuff. And it turned out that this did the trick. And it had been sitting there. So I got something right. I had the pliers, and I took the mouse amp, once I got the batteries, and I was able to turn these, take this off, take the speaker out, I've done this many times, replace my batteries, screw everything back in, bring it home, plug it in because I brought the charger along. The night before, by the way, it turned out that the charger would saved our butt. Once I plugged it into the charger, even though the batteries were freaking out, at least the thing gave us some power. So I fixed that. So you got 10 fingers, the dike is leaking in 11 places, but careful application of all this. Now, even while this is all going on, I'm noticing something else that's totally unexpected. And today, I just got a haircut today because my hair was getting pretty long, which is there was a lot of wind. It was 20, 25 miles an hour at various points. And my hair, which I usually keep in place, I'm an aging white guy and I have, my hair is thinning, but I usually use something that's like lighter than a gel. It's almost like hairspray, just put it on my hands, just do what you have to do, right? We're a harp player, you want to get some kind of look, right? I'm not super greased up. And my hair was wild. Let's look at that photo. I mean, this guy's a maniac, right? What I was, I guess, a little wilder and woollier looking than I usually am. I was wildly distracted by having to slap my hair out of my face. I didn't want that. I went out the next day. I said, I gotta get some gel. Went into a Walgreens, and I went to the guy who was behind the register. I said, "Do you guys sell hair gel?" I said, "I need something to keep my hair down." He goes, "I'll take you, and I'll show you what I use. Duke Cannon News Anchor Pomade." I said, "Really?" Got this stuff home. I mean, it's not greasy kid stuff. It is absolute lockdown control, and so that's what I did. I will never ever go anywhere without Duke Cannon News Anchor Pomade. If I'm on the windy coast, if I'm in Tulsa, if I'm on the windy coast of Florida, one more sort of mini disaster that had to be solved. One thing that's not working, and you got to learn something new. I've always been willing to learn something new. I had a lot of learning to do. So what else? Okay, so I know I can't use. I got my hair in place so that by the third night, it's not the final night, but this is the third night on the road, the second of the 3 nights on the coast. I know that I can't use I've got to use a combination that I don't usually use, which is I've got to use the Premier, that's my big amp, and I've got to use the Masco, and I've got to mic it up. Now here's the problem with that. Oh, yeah, that's right. And so I ended up taping this when I got home because this was all fraying and stuff. So everything is falling apart. So here's the Masco. It is a beautiful little amp. I paid hundreds of dollars. This thing had been only one owner. It's like an 8-inch speaker in the back. It's not very loud, but it's what I always use as one of two amps. I don't usually mic it though. When I use my small set, it's this. It's the K. This amp never has problems. This amp just works. But it's not very loud at all. But I can mic it. So what mic did I have? So I've got, if you're a harp player, you want to be a pro, you want to get the best sound. This is a Sennheiser E906. I have two of these. They're about $180 each. They are what they are for basically is like Memphis recording engineers put these in front of old Fender guitar amps, and the guys with the rockabillys feel they can just blast away, and they can take any sound pressure level, but they're really, really good in making small amps sound big. They give you full, strong, low end on an amp that might be normally kind of a little tinny. I've known this for a long time, so I swear by these. I don't get any money for this commercial endorsement. Sennheiser, good German microphone. Perfect. But here's the problem. Normally I dangle when I mic my amps, which is to say I wrap the cord through here, I wrap it around, there's a particular way that I wrap it around, and then I dangle. But if I try to do that, it didn't work. The thing was like too low. If I tried to dangle it on the cord, it just wasn't working. It wasn't quite. So I said, what am I going to do? And what I ended up doing was taking something I don't actually have to show you, but you've all seen it. I take duct tape, gaffer's tape, gray duct tape, which is the other absolute must-have on the road. And I basically, I kind of wrapped it across here. I taped this here. It's not an ideal way to go, right? To put tape on the amp, but that taped it in front. But what happened in the course of the gig is that this began to slip down. It began to slip down sort of off the amp, which of course does not give you a steady volume, so the volume will tend to drop. So I said, I'm doing the best I can. I tried to use a lot of tape. It was jerry-rigged in the worst way. But I said, when I get home, I just said, this is never going to happen again. The 3-amp thing, 3 amps was a good way to go. It saved my ass this time. Otherwise, I would have had to use just the Premier. It would have been okay, but I like miking a small amp. The Premier is a little bit, it's hard to get it really cranked out in some of these rooms. So it turns out that Gussow, who always uses 2 amps, bringing 3 that saved everything. But one more thing. Got back to Oxford, and I said, I went into the local music store and I said I need a small, not too heavy, just with a round metal base. I need a mic stand. The guy said, I've got just what you need. The thing on top was it was for a bigger mic than this, and that's something else I've learned. You've got to have the mic holder has to be the right gauge, but by God, I got it and it fit. And so we'll just show you how this all works. We'll go real here. So look, folks, just look at that. Look how perfect that is right there. Doesn't that just solve the problem in a beautiful way? It's just yearning. It's yearning for completion. Actually, wait. Wrong side. Front. See that thing that says front? Can you see front? That means the part that faces the amp. Don't ever make that mistake. Right. And the part that gives me some variables. So this goes right up against it. Can't lose with that. And actually, ideally, what's best placement for this? Best placement, this looks a little, it's hard for you guys to see because I'm kind of skewy here. Best placement is actually not straight on the cone. Best placement would be like this. Would be slightly off the cone. So it's aiming, instead this is the cone, assuming it's centered. I hope it's centered. It is centered. Okay, it's important to know that because not every amp is centered. But yes, you don't want to go straight on. You want to go a little bit to the side. You want to aim a little bit to the side. It's going to pick up all of this, but you want to be a little off the cone. So that's perfect right now. That'll give me the best possible sound. Was that everything I did? There was one more thing. So I got the mouse, I got the cable required for the house system. I got the K, which has now been sent off to Brian Amundsen, who's going to fix it. He says, yeah, I think it's probably a tube socket. I got the Masco thing together with the mic stand, which will work beautifully. I have written down tempos on drums. Yeah, by the time I basically started playing songs a little bit too fast, and I noticed that on the player. Oh, one more thing, interestingly enough, yeah, this little thing. I use the way I play through 2 amps. I forgot about this. Everything went wrong that could go wrong. The way I play through 2 amps is I have what's called a kind of passive signal splitter. It's a Y cable by Hosa Technology. They sell it for $7.99 here in Oxford. But yeah, Hosa Technology, YP106. This is a different kind of lesson, isn't it? Different kind of lesson. You always just want to know what notes to play. Nah, most of it is not about stuff like that. So here's the Hosa. So first night out, one of these starts to make noise. There's a short inside. And it's the one that's taped. Again, I was trying to like jerry rig a gaffer's tape. Can do some things, it can't do everything. So I just ripped it out. This was before the first gig, and I had one of these in my box. I had it right in the harmonica bag, and I just broke this sucker open right there on stage about a half hour before we went on, and just did that and did that. And I was good to go. And I had my 2 cables, and they could plug into the amps. Then, of course, the amp crapped out. But now I've got another one. Turns out, having one of those, if you use one, having a spare, I kind of knew there was something wrong. But anyway, there was one more thing. My guitar player, Alan, I love the guy. We love each other. We've been on the road on and off for 8 years. He usually brings a Fender Princeton, but he has a Fender Deluxe. It's heavier, it's louder. Usually he brings the Princeton and it's okay. I thought we're playing on outdoor stages. At least 3 of the nights are going to be outdoor. You probably could use the extra power. What that meant was that when in the portion of the evening devoted to his cigar box guitar, he was incredibly effing loud. He was so, and his ears are not good, so he wears basically what guys in airports wear over their ears to block everything, so that you can't really tell when you're talking really loud. So he talks loud, and then he plays ridiculously, and I was so freaked out because I got tinnitus. And you want to play the blues for a living? Well, here's what you'll find. Especially when a full moon is somewhere around, and it was about 2 days away from a full moon, you'll find that you learn how to be really expressive and how to really let somebody know what you're feeling, because that's what the music is training you to do, even as your professionalism tries to kick in. And I yelled at him on stage, "Turn it down!" I don't never yell at him on stage. I think maybe it's because I had dealt with all of these catastrophes and somehow continued to go along and try to make good music, keep a steady groove. He turned it down, and we made up later. Anyway, that is my dispatch from the road. What can I say except you think this harmonica playing thing is all about harmonica? That's the least of it. I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, all the songs that we had rehearsed on the 19th, getting ready for these 4 gigs in a row, all of that other stuff, most of what the tour consisted of, that was the stuff I could count on, was the music making. The music making. It was all the other stuff that had to be troubleshot on the run, without leading us astray, and I hate when my amps malfunction. I think most of us do. I hate when I can't. So what worked and what didn't work? What worked was having an extra one of these. That was a disaster I didn't have to deal with. What worked was knowing exactly what I needed to do to get the mouse working, and knowing where I could find the batteries, and going online to remind myself of what the exact number was, so that I could walk into Lowe's big box and get exactly the right ones. What worked was having this stuff, so I didn't need to buy pliers too. So some stuff worked really well. Some stuff I was able to fix the moment I got home. Realized I had an old cable. And some stuff's going to take the dedicated efforts of a great amp tech, Brian Amundsen, who will give me back my K, but you better believe I'm still going to take 3 amps on the road. And finally, I don't know what his name was, but dude, whoever you were in Walgreens, I appreciate what you did for me, man. I really appreciate it. Should I put some of this stuff in my hair? What do you think? Yeah, I think I'm ready to go. I think I'm ready to go. I'll see you. That's all for me. See you down the road. Yeah.
Every now and then I return to the scene of the crime.